on YouTube? It's Trayvon McKay, and I'm doing Swift tutorials. And for my first tutorial, excuse me, I can't speak. I'm going to show you guys how to create an Xcode project. Some of you may be past this level, some may not be. So I'm going to start from the very beginning, and there's going to be a series of videos with various topics. And at the end of this video series, we'll have a fully working mobile application, iOS application, and it will basically be a replica of the Twitter app. I feel like building the Twitter app, a lot of people are familiar with Twitter and familiar with the application. So taking you step by step through the various pieces of Twitter should give us a good understanding of how to build an application using Swift. So to get started, let's create our first Xcode project. And I'm assuming that you already have Xcode installed. If not, I will probably put out a video sometime later on installing Xcode and kind of setting up a development environment on your Mac. But today, this video is starting with how to create a project. So I'm going to go ahead and launch Xcode. And we're going to click on create a new project. So, if you're familiar with the Twitter app, you know that it's basically a tab-based application, meaning that there's a tab bar at the bottom of the app, and there are different tab items that allow you to navigate throughout the app. So when we actually create a new project, we have different project types that we can select from. Single view, which is self-explanatory, is just a single view application. A game, I've only done one game, so I'm not too familiar with this template. Master detail application just basically starts off with like a navigation controller, navigation controller in a table view. You select an item in the table and it takes you to a detail page. So if you're on an iPhone, it just navigates to a different page. If you're on an iPad, it has the little side view or whatever. Page-based application, think of it like just swiping left to right with the indicators at the bottom to show you what page you're on. Tabbed application, like I said, if you're familiar with the Twitter app, I think Instagram's too. Don't know what a sticker pack is. This is like with the iOS 10 stuff. I haven't touched that at all. iMessage application, I have not created one. I'm actually working on a project where I'm planning to create an iMessage application in a couple weeks. So once I get there, I'll definitely put out a video on how to do that. So, like I said, since we're building a replica of the Twitter client, we're going to start off with the tabbed application. So that's selected. I'm going to go next. So the product name, we're going to call it My Twitter App. So the team part, if you're a registered Apple developer, it means you've registered with developer.apple.com and you paid your developer registration fee, which for a single user or individual is $99 a year. If you want the enterprise version, I think it's like $200 or $300 a year. Once you've registered and did all that, like basically it creates a team on Apple's development services, and then you'll assign your apps to your team, and it creates all the signing certificates. There's a lot of certificates and provisioning profiles and whatnot that comes along with building an app when you actually want to put it onto a device and publish it into the store. We're not there yet, so I'm going to leave the team thing alone. I'm going to just leave it at none right now. I'll put out a video sometime down the road to explain like how to register as an Apple developer and all that. And once we do all that, we can actually start testing on the actual device. For now, we're just going to use the simulator, which is this little application down there. So I'm going to leave team at none. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. So my organization name, I don't have an organization name. So I'm going to just say it's me. Organization identifier. So this is like the identifier of your application. This is typically styled as like com dot whatever the name of your organization is dot whatever your application is. So I actually have my own company, McKay Industries LLC. So all the applications that I develop under my company's umbrella will always be com.mckayindustries dot whatever the application is. If I develop it for another group or another business, I typically follow that. So it's just standard practice to name it that way. There's no rule that says you have to do that. but the bundle identifier or the organization identifier kind of builds your bundle identifier automatically. That's very important because if this changes, your app changes. So if I create this app today as com.me.twitter app and I install that on my phone, if I ever change this bundle identifier, when I reinstall this app to my phone, it's going to show up as a totally different application. So think of this as a permanent identifier, at least the bundle pieces. There's a lot more work to kind of go in and change what the bundle identifier is if you don't want to associate it with the organization identifier. But by default, it maps from your organization identifier and dot whatever that product name is. So I do com.me. So I'm gonna just do Trayvon McKay. Got my Twitter app. So like I said, these are Swift tutorials. I'm choosing Swift. Apple's moving away from Objective-C, so I'm not even going to go there. Devices. So you can set what type of app you want. You can have a universal app, an iPhone app, or an iPad-only app. Should be self-explanatory, but a universal app can work on iPhones and iPads. iPhone-only app only works on iPhones. iPad-only app only works on iPad. If you choose universal, you get different storyboards to choose what the layout looks like based on the device type. We're going to keep it simple and just do an iPhone only app. So we'll just get an iPhone storyboard. Storyboard is basically like the UI of the application, where you built the UI for the application. So we have include unit tests and include UI tests. Yes and yes. Testing an application is super important. You have fully functional tests or end-user testing that you can do. You can actually go through each piece of the application, try out, make sure it works the way you want to. That is a time-consuming process. So we have unit tests to actually basically test out every function in the application that you write on an automated basis. You just run those tests whenever you want to, whatever, see what tests fail, see what tests pass, and then you can kind of dig in and figure out what's going on. UI tests are testing the actual touch components of the application. So if I touch here, does it go to the screen and whatnot. I've only recently started doing UI tests, so I'm not an expert there. Definitely want to learn more. So as I learn, you guys will learn, because I'll definitely make videos to share my experience there. So, but we're going to go to include both, and we'll definitely be writing unit tests throughout the video series. So go ahead and click next. Just choose where you want to save the project. I'm just going to call it my Twitter app. I like to lowercase my project folder names for some reason, so do that. Create. Okay, so as you guys can see, we have successfully created our first Xcode project app. So the display name of the app, my Twitter app, I can type in here and change that. The display name is actually what shows up on the device. So like if I look at Twitter, for instance, the name of the application, the app, I see the Twitter icon on my phone, and then under it says Twitter. So if I don't type anything there, if I deploy this to my device, the display name would be my Twitter app, the way it's styled there. If I want it to be different, I can put spaces, my Twitter app, and it will show up that way. That does not affect the bundle identifier. The display name has nothing to do with the product name or the bundle identifier. So as we see here, the bundle identifier, like I said, when I created a new project, it was automatically styled for my organization identifier dot the application name. If I want to, I can change it out here, but I'm fine with the way it is. The version number, we set the version of our app, version 1, 1, 2, whatever. So typically, I guess in software, they do what's called a major, minor, and revision. So like the major, which is like the first number, changes when there's breaking changes across versions. Minors are just I don't know, small changes that you do within the application, and then revisions. I typically reserve revisions for bug fixes and things like that. So I didn't add any new features or change the way something worked. I just fixed the bug. So to me, that's a revision. And then a build is just every time the project is built. Um, I so for my projects, I use continuous integration servers, which basically I check in code to some remote server. The server builds it automatically for me and runs a series of tests, and then sends me an email or report back at the end of the day, or at the end of that process to let me know. So I let those systems control the actual build number for me, versus me doing it locally. Because if I had changed the build number locally, I'd be in the thousands. Like I click build so often. Team. So select development team and project editor requires. Okay, so I don't think we can actually run an app without a team, or can we? Let's see. Yes, we can. All right. So this is the first time I'm actually doing an app without a team. Like since I've started writing apps, I've always been a registered Apple developer. Um, so I'm just this warning to me. I didn't know if it was like a breaking warning or not. Okay, so that's signing. So yeah, like I said, once we're ready to actually deploy it to a real device, we'll have to come in here and deal with the whole signing stuff, signing teams and all that. Um, I believe so this automatically managed signing. This is pretty new to Xcode. Like I've been with Xcode since 2010. So before it wasn't automatic. It was a lot of work with like provisioning profiles and all that. Apple's done a great job with automating that process. So literally, like once I select the team, it downloads all that information for me. So we can take that load off. Deployment info. So this basically you get to set like what iOS SDK you want to target. So most people should be on iOS 10 today. So it's safe to target 10. But if you want a wide reach, it's always cool to go backwards. So I typically start from 9.3. I feel like that covers a pretty good base of people. So I'm going to set the target back down to 9.3. Devices, of course, we said I'm just going to build an iPhone only. Main interface. So this is the main. So remember I talked about storyboards. So storyboards are these files that you basically can create the UI in. So we're going to look at main storyboard here. So since we chose tab bar app, tab controller app, our main storyboard starts off with the tab controller. And they've created two simple views in there for us. So I go back here. Basically here, the main interface, I'm just telling it which is the main storyboard to actually load the project from. This launch screen storyboard is a screen that's shown when your application actually launches. You can't do much with this screen here. It's pretty static. You don't want your app like crashing during the launching process, so you can't add any custom classes or any custom things here. Like you can just put an image or text or things like that, but as far as like custom classes, you can't do that there. So, and we reference what our actually launch storyboard is here under apps, app icons, launch images. So I choose launch screen for that. Device orientation. So if I rotate my device, will the app actually rotate? So portrait, of course, is with the home button at the bottom, the camera and speaker at the top. Upside down, which is portrait in reverse. Landscape left. So if I turn my phone to the left and the home button is on the right and the camera and speaker are on the left, landscape right is the reverse of that. I'm only going to support portrait. I don't want to worry about landscaping and all that stuff. Status bar styles, you can do light or default. I'm going to skip over that. I can't explain those right now. I think light, it's like translucent maybe, or transparent. Don't remember. But we can also hide it so the status bar doesn't show at all. Or we can set the app to require full screen. Don't know what that actually does, but we're not going to worry about that for now. So that's kind of the basics of creating a new Xcode project. That's the general stuff. We'll look at the capabilities. So the capabilities are just all the different permissions that your app kind of needs. So wallet or passbook. Does it interact with Siri? I never built an app with Siri yet. Apple Pay. So there's quite a few things in here. Trying to think what we might use with our Twitter app. Push notifications. We'll definitely get into push notifications. Don't see a reason to use map or maps. Okay. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. All right, so let's kind of look at the files that are created for us off the bat. So app delegate is like your main file. This is like the first file that's hit when the app is launched. And so as you can see by some of the function names, it's kind of apparent there. So the app did finish launching with some options. So what happened? What do you want to do once the app has launched? Once it got past that launch screen page. If my app ever enters the background and then comes back, what I want to do, so like that's entering the foreground. If my app is about to go into the background, what do I want to do? The application just became active if it's about to close. So a couple different things that we can worry about, saving states and things like that. So that's all in the app delegate. First view controller, like I said, it created two basic view controllers. So there's nothing here. View did load is just something that's called whenever a view actually loads, and then did receive memory warning. If your app is running low on memory, what can you do to kind of get some of that memory back? So get rid of things that you don't need. If you do need it, get rid of it and then recreate it. So second view controller, same thing. Like I said, we already seen the main storyboard. So the first view controller is tied to this, second view controller is tied to that. This class is not subclass, meaning that we don't have our own custom implementation. So if you look here under custom classes, we use the default Apple created class, which is UI tab bar controller. So it doesn't show up in our file navigator because we didn't create our own thing as part of the app, the iOS SDK. I can subclasses if I want to, but you typically don't need to do that unless you're building something super advanced. So assets is where we store images, our app icon. Assets is pretty cool because it allows you to create the different image sizes for the different screen sizes. So like we go back to 2010 when like Apple only had the 4.5 inch screens before all the Retina stuff. Like you just created one image and that was it. That's all you needed. Then it came out with Retina, so then you had to do a 2 times size image. So I had an image that was 40 by 40. To support Retina, I had to make it 80 by 80, and then you had to name it weirdly and things like that, but the system would know how to do that. And then when they came out with bigger phones, then they had problems on their hands. So they had to figure out like how can we do all this. So like assets kind of controls all that. So based off of the image size that you have, you can drop in different things. So it's not doing it for me. It'll basically say like 40.1, 40.2, 40.3. So your 0.3 would be 2 times that, 0.3 would be 3 times that. And then the application or the SDK chooses the image appropriately based on the screen size of the application. So we'll just go back there. We looked at the launch screen. There's nothing there. Our info P list is just pretty much everything that we see here. Like this is a nice UI way to look at a lot of things that are actually stored in info P list, so you're not editing a text file. So that covers the actual application, and then the other 2 folders are this is our unit test, my Twitter app test, and then this is the UI test. We're not going to deal with that for now. And then products holds the actual output, or the actual .app file that's created. So this is like what you would drag and drop into iTunes if you wanted to install it. So no, you wouldn't. Take that back. You do that with the .ipa. .app is just a compiled version of your app. So So let's go ahead and run this just to see what it looks like. I don't like running the iPhone 7 simulator. It's just too big for my screen. I got the 15-inch MacBook, but I still think it's too big. If I had an external monitor or iMac, I would do that. But yeah, this is too big for this thing. So I'm gonna run it on the iPhone 6. And notice how we get different simulators. So I have a simulator for 9.3 since that's my deployment target, and then 10.2 since that's the SDK that I'm using. And so as you can see here, those are our two view controllers that are there in the storyboard. So we have first and second. And that's it. So we'll relaunch it one more time just so we can see the launch screen. That's blank. Blank launch screen. My two view controllers. So let's go to our launch screen and let's just add something real quick. Oops, didn't do that. So like I said, since we're going to replicate the Twitter app, I'm just put my Twitter app there. And the UI label, see the class UI label, it's a label it's a class that's a part of the SDK. It's not custom, so we can use this inside of our launch screen storyboard. So now I'm going to relaunch the app. Wow, my Twitter app. There we go, right to the controllers. All right, so congratulations, you just created your first iOS app using Swift. And the next video, we're gonna dive into some more things. I don't know what we're gonna dive into yet, but it's coming soon. So yeah, just check out the playlist. I'm adding videos as I create them. I don't know if it's daily, hourly, but as they come, they come. So first step completed. We've created a Xcode project. Next step is programming some stuff into the app. All right, thanks for watching. If you liked it, like it. You want to stay notified about me, subscribe. See ya.